Hello, and thank you for coming tonight. We are Team Biolytx. My name is Ollie Khalili. I'm a third-year law student with a degree in microbiology.
I'm Ashley Zumwalt, a petroleum engineering junior from Choctaw, Oklahoma.
Cole Roberts, mechanical engineering senior, Mustang, Oklahoma.
My name's Christian Bester, and I'm an accounting student from Allen, Texas.
Biolytx is one of Oklahoma's newest and most exciting biotech companies, one of Oklahoma's newest and most exciting biotech companies. Biolytx was founded in 2005 by Dr. Ann Pereira. Through her research, Biolytx currently holds 14 patents surrounding a novel peptide drug called CAP37, which is currently in its preclinical stages of testing. Furthermore, Biolytx recently hired a new CEO to develop and implement a successful business model. Biolytx engaged in an ongoing partnership with CCEW the summer of 2010 when the company asked the fellows to help develop its Edge Fund grant application. As a result, Biolytx was one of 3 companies out of 62 applicants to receive a $1.8 million Edge Fund. Biolytx re-engaged in its partnership with CCEW this fall when it asked our team to identify the company's market potential, its funding opportunities, and the regulatory pathway it would have to undergo in order to capitalize on its robust IP portfolio. Of the many questions our group asked, the first was, what are the additional markets that Biolytx should focus its preclinical testing on and those which it should explore with its future research? Second, what was the regulatory pathway that Biolytx would have to undergo in order to get their drug to market, more specifically, the cost associated with each test? Third, what advancement into each additional market would mean for the overall value and growth of the company? And finally, what next immediate steps the company would have to undergo in order to capitalize on its opportunities? Biolytx technology addresses the overwhelming problem of antibiotic resistance. Over the last 20 years, antibiotic resistance has increased by 30% due to over-application and misuse of antibiotic drugs. Furthermore, exacerbating this problem is the fact that drugs within the pipeline treating such infections have reduced quickly, with only 3 drugs being introduced to the FDA within the last 5 years. With antibiotic resistance increasing at an exponential rate and no new drug treatment options available, infections will only begin to spread more rapidly. As a result, the Center for Disease Control has ranked antibiotic resistance as the #1 problem facing healthcare today. Biolytx's novel peptide drug called CAP37 is derived from a naturally occurring human protein. Peptides are small strands of amino acids, which are the building blocks of human and animal cells. Peptide drugs are generally new and with variances can treat a wide range of problems, from cancer to skin ailments. CAP37 is a novel treatment option and therefore has low antibiotic resistance due to the fact that pathogens have yet to be introduced to the drug. Furthermore, CAP37 is unique and is very effective in that it has low drug-drug interaction and has low toxicity, which means it will have minimal negative effects upon its patients. However, peptides are currently much more expensive than traditional antibiotics, and peptides must be administered intravenously. For this reason, hospitals are the ideal setting for peptide drug administration. In the past, peptides have been prevented from entering the market due to their high toxicity, their high manufacturing costs, and their low potency. However, tests conducted on CAP37 within the last 5 years have shown that these issues are not prevalent with this drug. This is a very important fact for the ongoing development of CAP37. Now here's Ashley to tell you a bit more about the applications of the drug and the potential markets that it can penetrate.
Thank you, Ollie. The initial applications of CAP37 have shown great promise in 2 broad categories, anti-infectives and wound healing. Within the anti-infective spectrum, CAP37 has shown to be extremely effective in treating hospital-based infections and fungal-based infections. The type of hospital-based infection addressable by CAP37 is limited to a particular kind of bug known as a gram-negative. Well-known bugs, like MRSA, that are often discussed in the popular press, are gram-positive and thus not addressable with CAP37. However, there are gram-negative pathogens, such as Pseudomonas and Acinetobacter, that are just as deadly. Gram-negative pathogens are particularly troublesome because they largely have no effective treatment option due to antibiotic resistance. Of these infections, Many strains have mortality rates as high as 50%. Biolytx has decided to first commercialize the anti-infective portion of this peptide. It has thus far focused its research funding and management capabilities on a treatment for Pseudomonas. The development pathway for Pseudomonas was decided prior to our team's involvement by Biolytx. Our team has focused on establishing CAP37 as a broad efficacy treatment by identifying 3 additional anti-infective markets, which include Acinetobacter, E. coli, and a fungal application. CAP37 has also shown the ability to heal damages to tissue. And initial tests in eye tissue show that CAP37 may be able to be used in serious corneal wounds that without treatment would result in severe vision loss or even blindness. This capability of CAP37 may extend more generally to include skin wounds, but more research needs to be done in this area in order to fully understand the efficacy of CAP37. The wound healing market will be discussed later in our presentation. So as I stated previously, the initial application of CAP37 is Pseudomonas, and that was chosen because of the huge need in this area, as well as the large market size of $306 million annually. Our team has identified 3 additional markets, so let's look at the characteristics of those. Acinetobacter is a virulent bacteria that thrives in the hospital environment and can survive on human skin or a dry surface for weeks before causing an infection. Acinetobacter can attack open wounds and has most recently been found in recovering burn victims in our soldiers. It's becoming a pressing issue within the military force. It is estimated that 1/2 of soldiers returning from Afghanistan and Iraq with burn wounds will become infected with this deadly pathogen. Due to a lack of treatment options, many of our soldiers who valiantly return home from service will die as a result. This is a pressing area of research within the National Institutes of Health and the Department of Defense. However, no treatment has been found and developed as far along as CAP37. It is estimated that Acinetobacter has a market size of $51 million in 2010, growing to a size of $89 million by 2025. E. coli is a well-known bacteria that generally causes foodborne illnesses. Of its many effects, E. coli can cause gastrointestinal and urinary tract diseases with side effects as severe as acute renal failure and permanent dependence on kidney therapy. The number of cases each year is large, with 450,000 cases in 2004. The growth of this market is highly variable and is linked to outbreaks. If food safety in the U.S. improves, the market for this drug would become smaller. But as the historical trend shows, E. coli outbreaks happen frequently worldwide. The annual market value of E. coli in 2010 is $36 million. Within the fungal market, candidemia occurs when a patient's bloodstream is poisoned with fungi. Bloodstream poisoning can cause septic shock, permanent disability, or even death. There are 3,000 cases annually, which equates to an annual market value of $9 million. Although the market is small, clinical need is great, as there is no current last-line treatment option for these patients. The 4 markets currently displayed on the screen total to a complete market value of $402 million annually and may establish CAP37 as a broad efficacy treatment. Now, current gram-negative treatment options are extremely limited. As a first line of defense, monotherapy with existing anti-infectives is used, which means that you just use one anti-infective. Although toxicity is low with this method, antibiotic resistance has developed. So as a second-line treatment, a cocktail of existing anti-infectives is given. Although antibiotic resistance is still prevalent, the toxicity increases with this method. And currently, as a third line of treatment and a current last line of treatment is colistin. It was actually outlawed in the 1970s because of its extremely toxic effects on patients and was only brought back because there is no other treatment option. Antibiotic resistance has even begun to develop to colistin, leaving patients with no other treatment option. So CAP37 could actually come in and take this position, offering patients a treatment option with both low toxicity and low antibiotic resistance. and if market scale-up can be achieved, it could overtake the first 3 lines of treatment and become a first-line treatment option. So now to talk to you about the regulatory pathway through which our drug would have to pass before becoming available to the general public is Cole.
Thank you, Ashley. Now that Ashley has talked about the markets, how do we obtain those markets? Here is the basic FDA regulatory pathway that all drug companies must go through to reach the market. It begins with preclinical testing, which is safety testing on animals. Once completed, an IND, or investigational new drug application, is submitted to the FDA. Once approved, the company is given the right to pursue clinical trials. These clinical trials consist of 3 phases. Phase 1 being toxicity testing, Phase 2 actually being 2 separate phases, Phase 2A and Phase 2B, and these mainly deal with efficacy. And finally, Phase 3, which is considered the most pivotal of all the phases because it's a nationwide randomized efficacy test. Once all of that is done, an NDA, or new drug application, is filed with the FDA. Once approved, the market can be pursued. For preclinical trials for CAP37 for the indication of Pseudomonas, it will cost $4.3 million to complete. However, as previously stated, $3.7 million has been attained from previous grants, also known as the EDGE and NIH grants. This leaves only $600,000 necessary to get to the IND stage, leaving $1.5 million for Phase 1, $4 million for Phase 2, and finally $10 million for Phase 3. As Ashley previously stated, though, CAP37 has demonstrated efficacy in 3 other markets. The total cost for these other markets to get through the preclinicals and reach the IND stage is only $630,000. This is because as Pseudomonas testing is being completed, some of the testing phases overlap, significantly reducing preclinical trials and eliminating Phase 1 costs. So Phase 2 and Phase 3 are still there, and those costs can be seen above. Total cost for all 4 indications to go through preclinicals and reach IND is $1.2 million, with Phase 1 still costing $1.5 million, Phase 2 costing $16 million, and Phase 3 costing $40 million. However, most smaller biotech companies sell their compound at the end of Phase 2A to a larger pharmaceutical company. This, in turn, eliminates the most expensive part of Phase 2 and takes the original cost of $16 million down to only $2.4 million. The preclinical trials can be funded from an SBIR grant, or Small Business Innovation Research grant, while the clinical phases can be pursued with a NIH R01 Clinical Trials Implementation Grant. So what does all this mean? It means that for 4 indications, it will only cost an extra $5.1 million to reach the end of Phase 2A. Now to talk to you more about the valuation of the company is Christian Vester.
Cole just outlined the regulatory pathway and discussed the funding requirements and solutions. I will now show how the valuation of the firm changes as the anti-infective portfolio changes as it moves through the regulatory process. The bottom part of this graph represents the cumulative development cost for Pseudomonas, and the top part represents the valuation for this treatment in each phase. These valuations were obtained using a risk-adjusted net present value analysis. So, with only a Pseudomonas treatment in the pipeline, the portfolio will be worth $39 million at Phase 2A. However, if the company can further develop treatments for the Acinetobacter, E. coli, and fungal markets, it can increase the valuation of the portfolio by $12.7 million, while it will only have to invest an additional $2.4 million in development. This will lead to a total valuation of $51.7 million at Phase 2A. Furthermore, the further development of these treatments can help the company claim broad efficacy. Then its valuations can truly skyrocket. Broad efficacy means that the drug can treat multiple gram-negative pathogens. In fact, companies or drugs that are very similar to CAP37, which have proven broad efficacy, have sold for much higher valuations in the market. Calixa, being the most similar to CAP37, actually sold for $92 million at Phase 2A. Now, it should be mentioned that CAP37 uses a novel mechanism to kill its pathogens, and Calixa does not. As a result, it's reasonable to conclude that CAP37 might even sell for a higher amount. Now, with only a Pseudomonas treatment in the research pipeline, the company will produce about a 6x return on investment. But if it can prove broad efficacy and capitalize on these other market indications, it can increase its return on investment to 10.5x. Now that we have discussed how a small amount of extra investment can unlock a large amount of additional valuation, let's take a deeper look at the business model. Currently, the company has Pseudomonas working through its research pipeline, and shortly will also be developing other anti-infective treatments. As this portfolio moves through the FDA pathway, the company will have to outsource a bunch of its non-core testing to clinical research organizations and contract manufacturing organizations. The reason for this is that it would simply be too impractical and too expensive for the company to establish the facilities necessary to complete these types of tests. Now, they will push the portfolio through to phase 2A and then sell it to a larger pharmaceutical company. Then, Biolytx can take these proceeds and reinvest it in the research pipeline to pursue other markets where CAP37 has shown promise. In fact, if the company can continue to develop applications and sell them to other pharmaceutical companies and reinvest the proceeds in other types of research, it can create a sustainable business model. We earlier alluded to the fact that CAP37 has shown some promise in the wound healing market. And our team has identified this to be the perfect place for the company to reinvest the anti-infective proceeds. So at this time, let's take a deeper look at what the wound healing market entails. CAP37 has shown promise in the wound healing market because the peptide makes cells migrate into the wound and then regenerate. This shortens healing time and also minimizes scarring. The wound healing market can be divided up into many different segments, but we've placed our focus on 3 of the biggest of these market segments: diabetic ulcers, venous ulcers, and corneal ulcers. Diabetic ulcers occur in about 15% of the diabetes community, and once contracted, this wound is very difficult to heal. This market is currently valued at $7.2 billion and has a growth rate of 7%. Venous ulcers, on the other hand, are caused by a lack of circulation, and they are most commonly found in the hospital environment in the form of bed sores. This market is currently valued at $3.6 billion. And finally, corneal ulcers result from ulcerative keratitis. And if this condition is left untreated, a patient can entirely lose their vision. This market is currently valued at $75 million. In the aggregate, these 3 markets are worth $11 billion. Given the large size and growth potential of the wound healing market, we deem this to be the perfect place for Biolytx to reinvest the anti-infective proceeds. In summary, our team has identified $96 million worth of additional markets in the anti-infective arena. And we have shown how Pseudomonas has laid the groundwork for further anti-infective testing, due to the fact that a lot of the tests will actually overlap, which will decrease the aggregate testing cost. And third, we showed how the valuation of the portfolio can increase drastically with only a minimal investment. And finally, we identified the wound healing market to be the perfect place where Biolytx should reinvest its anti-infective proceeds. At this time, we want to discuss the recommendations that we have personally made to Biolytx. In the short term, we recommend that the company submits an SBIR application to require the additional $600,000 that it needs to complete preclinical testing for Pseudomonas. We then recommend that the firm takes advantage of R01 clinical trial implementation grants to fund clinical trials, which in this case would be phase 1 and phase 2A. These grants provide Biolytx with the ability to further testing without incurring any dilution. Next, recommend that the company applies for orphan drug status and submits a fast-track application. This will shorten the regulatory time and also slightly increase the valuation of the portfolio. Finally, we recommend that the company sells its anti-infective research and funnels the money back into the wound healing market. In the short term for wound healing, we recommend that the company applies for an SBIR grant so that it can get the wound healing treatment off the ground. In the long term, we recommend that the company continues to pursue promising markets within this field. And also, we recommend that the company maintains a platform business model where it uses CAP37 to treat various different types of illnesses. Ladies and gentlemen, it's truly been a pleasure this semester to have been able to work with Dr. Pereira and Biolytx. We would now like to open the floor up to any questions. Thank you. Yes.
Given the millions of state and federal dollars expended on CAP 37, does the public hold an ownership share in the drug, or should the public hold an ownership share in the drug?
The question was, given all the money that's been spent, or public money that's been spent on CAP 37, should the public hold an interest stake in CAP 37? I guess I have to answer it. I mean, I would say that eventually the drug was commercialized, the entire U.S. population would benefit from it.
As a price, I think they would probably charge for this dose, right?
Yes, they would. But it would save their lives, which in the long run is more important. Sure. Yes.
So you said you would sell the research to into phase 2A, and then use those for investments to continue with other platforms that the CAP 37 can use. How will you be able to sell the drug without using intellectual property rights?
Essentially, the CAP 37, this is probably a question that Ollie should answer, but Biolytx has 14 different peptides, and we will be, or no, I'm sorry, patents, and will essentially be selling the patents that it has for anti-infectives. But it also has completely different patents for the wound healing capabilities. Would you like to add to that, Ollie?
Fairly covered.
Yes, please.
Orphan drugs are usually for conditions that are rare and are not profitable. This doesn't sound like that situation, so how do you justify that?
Well, orphan drugs, there's two ways to get an orphan drug status. Either your drug affects less than 250,000, or you won't make a profit. So either way, you can do it. However, I went and did research, and recently this year, a drug for Pseudomonas for a certain strand was granted orphan drug status. So that's why we have decided as a team that that would be a good route to pursue.
And it's important to point out that Pseudomonas has 102,000 cases annually, so that does qualify as an orphan drug.
Yes.
Can you talk a little bit about the patent life remaining, and given the time for development, how many years of revenues could actually be realized from the development of these technologies, especially if you're beginning research after you've sold off, the infected portion?
The question relates to the patent life that CAP 37 has, and also about the market implications of that.
Well, actually, as said previously, Biolytx currently holds 14 patents. They're currently in the process of obtaining a standalone patent on a modified version of CAP 37, which would be a completely new patent for this version. Furthermore, all these patents that are affecting the new anti-infective markets that we are discussing have life beyond the years 2025, many of them. And then, of course, if Dr. Pereira decides to pursue the wound healing market and begins patenting those specific treatment options, those will also be additional new patents that will have a substantial amount of life. Also, with the orphan drug status, I think we get 7 years of market exclusivity if Pseudomonas were to qualify for that, which would, in essence, extend its patent life that extra 7 years.
I've just loved working with this team. I think I give them the Most Improved Award. I could just see them blossom and develop and gain so much confidence over the course of this semester. It's been terrific.